Hi and welcome back to the First Time Homebuyer Show. I'm your host, Esty Klaassen. As you know, this is the show where we chat to driven, motivated and optimistic individuals. Every day this week, we have something special lined up for you. Join Zama every weeknight at 7 p.m. with the Private Property Podcast. Join Mbali every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. If you have those green fingers and you want to learn more about agriculture and farming, Zama is the girl for you. And every weekend, we do not leave you alone. Join Chad with the Home Shopper Show. Have fun while shopping for your perfect home. And without further ado, today I'm joined with Siyabulela Ramba, a finance and marketing specialist and also an actor, creative content creator. The list is endless. Siya's joined with us tonight and we're talking about how he juggled going all the way from renting to buying mid-pandemic. Siya, thank you so much for joining us this evening. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. And you, Esty?
Can't complain. So Siya, tell us, who is Siya? What do you do? Who is Siya?
Oh gosh, I always find it really difficult to encapsulate who Siya is, but he's multifaceted. He does too much sometimes, but there's no such thing as too much in terms of like Siya's diction or vocabulary. Siya is a Cape Townian that was born in Gugulethu. Born in Somerset Hospital at the waterfront, but grew up in Gugulethu. And he went to a school in the Atlantic Seaboard, went to UCT. Siya is a creative, but also an intellectual. In terms of, I studied finance and economics, but I started working in the entertainment industry from a very young age. Got my first TV show in grade 9. Urban Brew was famous, and then from there I started doing a lot of edutainment stuff, and then I got my first film same year, 2007, and that was for Fox TV 24 with Kiefer Sutherland, and then I did Free Willy with Warner Brothers the year after that. So it's been a journey of juggling Siya the right brain and Siya the left brain, who wants to live and be creative and be outspoken and wants to be an extrovert, but also as the individual that is analytical and wants to prove that just because you've got the gift of the gab, it doesn't mean that you can't be good at numbers and survive in a corporate workspace. And so that is who Siya is, and it's an individual that straddles the lines and says, why can't you have it all?
So Siya, you're an actor first, and then, you're a finance and marketing specialist, but acting is first. And we know that the entertainment industry is a little bit rocky right now with this pandemic. How did you manage to sustain yourself during this tough and trying times?
So it was very interesting actually because I mean my bio says I'm a closeted corporate climber because a lot of people don't even know that I work in corporate South Africa because my social media leads one to believe that he must be a lifestyle content creator and that's it. But I guess during COVID there was a lot that changed, right? So from request castings and auditions that couldn't necessarily happen, and now you need to become good at doing self tapes, and that was a new world for me. And lockdown, I had moved out of my apartment and I had moved home, so it was finding the right space because obviously you needed a white background, you needed good lighting, and so it didn't always work out at times. But if you did enough research, you'd find that there were tricks available that other actors were sharing, and there's you're not alone, right? And I think understanding the idea of big data and the and how the world has become smaller because of things like the internet and social media, it's being able to tap into those and utilizing those to your benefit. So I learned the mattress trick of taking off your mattress and using your base as like a backdrop for your self tape, and it's hilarious because you usually are in front of a casting director and you are hi, my name is Siyabulela Ramba, I'm 27 years old, giving you my hands, giving you profiles I'm auditioning for, and doing it to yourself is different, right? And you get to, but looking at it from another perspective, you get to do it as many times as you want and you get to perfect it. But if you're overcritical, then what do you send off, so it was tough, but I believe in finding the opportunity in situations that you find yourselves in, right? Because a lot of the times there are things in the world that we can control, but then there's things that we can't. So things like a pandemic are things that are out of your control. So being able to find a way to move and be agile, so that agility of being able to adapt to a constantly changing world was a skill I had to learn from a very young age, because I had to move in so many different social circles, because I went to a primary school that was in Athlone, so that was a colored environment and I loved it. I went from to an Atlantic seaboard space which was, oh no, he might be scurvy, and you move in a for lack of a better word, a heteronormative space as a queer body, and that requires agility as well, because you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, right? Because as much as you might be proud of who you are, not everybody's going to want to engage with you on that level because there's still a stigma around homosexuality, so it's utilizing those skills and understanding that not everything is myopic and is as isolated and in a silo as you might think it is. So these skills that you're acquiring from, let's say, an interaction from just you and me might be skills that I will use in another setting, and learning that it's not bordered and allowing it to blend through your life is probably how I've survived.
We all know that we need to be extremely disciplined when saving up for such an amazing investment, and property is exactly that. It's one of the greatest investments leading to financial freedom. Sia, what would you say was your savings strategy? What goals did you put in place so that you could achieve this goal right here?
So I went from renting from, let's say, I remember I left Res, which was in Rosebank, right, Rondebosch. And I left Res around 2013, 2014, and I moved into my first apartment in Observatory. And that was an interesting dynamic because now I was actually paying, because I was partly on NSFAS. My mom had assisted me with tuition. I was paying for some of my tuition as well. I had some good burses as well. So the funding experience for university and residence was something that was quite diverse, and moving into your own space, it was like, okay, cool. You need to make sure that you have deposit. You need to make sure that you've got rent for each month, and you seek a level of stability. And so as a creative, it's tough because you exist in a space where you might book 2 commercials, and firstly, you're lucky because not a lot of creatives are working at times like this, because not a lot of shoots are happening, you know? And so you're lucky. And then there's also the 3-month delay, depending on how your agent works, you know, and how production companies work. And so you might be shooting something today and you might only see the money in April, you know, and being able to have a buffer and that. So I think having studied finance and economics and trying to work at how do you bring these two worlds together, right? Saving up for those bond costs and those transfer costs was something which I think required me to be extremely pragmatic, and sacrifices needed to be made. I mean, I'd like to think I've got expensive taste, and obviously if I if this is the life I want to live, right? It means that there's certain things that I won't have the luxury of doing, you know. So I mean, at the end of the month, I'd probably like to spoil myself with maybe a pair of shoes, or it would be a shirt. I mean, and it's small things that keep you motivated, and they remind you of what you're working for. Because if you don't reward yourself, it's kind of like, okay, cool, you're gonna grunt and sigh throughout every single day, but you need to remind yourself that there's more to life, you know, and that it's not all in vain. And I think we extremely hard on ourselves, and I think we exist in a society where it's not just external pressures from how everybody else is moving, but it's pressures we have on ourselves with regards to what we think we should be doing in terms of like where at a particular point in your life you should be, and it's a mental thing where you apply that pressure on yourself. And if you were a bit kinder to yourself, you'd allow yourself to move and say, you know what, if it doesn't happen this year, that's okay. You know, like a dream delayed is not a dream denied, you know, and it's important. And I think that kindness is something that a lot of people should like try to practice. And so self-care Sundays is important, you know, because it's like unwind, relax. As much as you're working and as much as you're pushing, if you're not filling your cup, you're giving from something that's depleted, and that kind of giving is a different kind of giving. It's not the healthiest form of giving, because then you're looking for things like reciprocation. And when someone doesn't necessarily receive whatever you're giving, whether it be love, whether it be in monetary form, whether it be in attention, and if people squander it, people become mad, right? And I think giving from a place of fullness and wholeness is unconditional, in the sense that whatever you choose to do with whatever I give you is your business. I move away from that transaction being in a place saying, you know what, if you decided to stand me up, right, for a lunch that we had planned, I'm like, it's okay. Because at the end of the day, it's, as much as it was my time, I will sit here, I'll have the lunch myself, and I'll use that time for something else. It's like for me, because as much as you're not using it, I will, right? And so who loses out from that?
I love that you talk about loving yourself and putting yourself first, and always giving yourself those self-care Sundays. You know, I love that you said that. And just in the week we spoke about, yes, it's okay to know your partner's love language and practice that on them daily. But do you know your own love language? Are you practicing that on yourself daily?
I think it's so important understanding firstly, okay, cool, how you want to be loved. But I think it's also important understanding the fact that, like, if you want to attract a particular type of love, or you want to be treated a particular type of way, you teach people how to treat you, right? So they need to see that. So I started it after moving in here. I was like, you know what, I really would love to get flowers. And I had to turn that around to the idea of, why are you not buying yourself flowers each week until someone feels that they can buy you flowers? And so for the last few weeks, I've been buying myself a bouquet of flowers, and I've been putting it at my table. And I mean, I've got flowers, right? And I mean, my birthday came around and I got an abundance of flowers, which like filled this home. And it's one of those things, because I had created a world where people knew I had an appreciation for flowers, and whether you're giving me those flowers or not, I'm still receiving flowers. So when you fill into that space, you're coming into an environment where I hope it's an implicit expectation that this is what he likes. And so if you're giving that to yourself, the world and the universe listens and say, you know what, I know something that resonates with that, and let's give you more of that.
Siya, throughout this conversation, the one thing that pops up to me a lot about you, going from Googs, coming to the beach. I mean, you're 5 minutes from the ocean. Hello. And it's this word transition, right? There's always a transition from you, from one school to the next, from work to the next. And I love that you have such a beautiful transition. You're now in the transition of owning your first home. You've transitioned from renting to buying. What was that transition like for you?
So as you mentioned, right, I happened to get a very comfortable and privileged gap between renting and buying, which was being able to move home into my room that I left in 2010 when I was in matric. So I got to go back, but starting at, let's say, renting, right? Because that's the comparison you'd like me to make, is starting from a renting perspective. On a month-to-month basis, you'd be paying out of your pocket, and there's a level of, I'm paying someone else's bond. Yeah. Right? And I also can't make the kind of changes to this place that are permanent or are what I would love to do. So there's a level of restriction, right? I can't drill into the wall, or maybe if I do drill into the wall because I want to put up a really nice painting, that means I'll have to get someone to come and fill those holes up later, or if the landlord comes through, how did you hang those up? I mean, I just got sick and tired of lying about back-to-back tape, because there were definitely nails in that wall. And then also the fight for your deposit after you've moved out, where I'm just like,